The boutique smelled like luxury, rose, amber, and a hint of something that felt almost sinful in how perfect it was. I walked slowly between the shelves, running my fingers along the glass bottles that caught the light like tiny jewels. This wasn't just a shopping trip, it was a little tradition of mine. Every year, I picked something special for Daniel, my husband, my supposed forever. I wanted a scent that felt warm, loyal, intimate, something that said us. The soft jazz floating through the air matched my heartbeat, steady and content. Everything felt calm, certain, until the moment that peace shattered. A smiling saleswoman approached, the kind that looks like she belongs in a perfume ad, polished, radiant, and a little too eager. "You've got great taste," she said, nodding toward the bottle in my hand. "That scent's one of our best sellers." I smiled back, genuinely pleased. Perfect. My husband loves subtle fragrances. She hesitated, her expression flickering like a candle caught in a draft. "Oh, that's funny," she said, almost laughing. "Your husband was here last week buying this exact one, for his girlfriend." My smile froze before my thoughts did. "His girlfriend?" I asked quietly, each syllable tasting like metal. She gasped, realizing too late. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I assumed you were—" "No," I cut her off, my voice sharper than I intended. "You assumed wrong." The air around us thickened, heavy with embarrassment and disbelief. I paid for the perfume anyway, because somehow it felt like taking back control, even if my hands were trembling. When I stepped outside, the world looked exactly the same. But I wasn't. The soft afternoon light hit the shop window, reflecting my face back at me like a stranger's. My smile was gone, but my poise remained, the armor I'd worn for years. The perfume bag felt heavier than it should have, swinging gently from my wrist as if mocking me. I didn't cry. Not there. I just walked to my car, heels clicking like a metronome counting down to something inevitable. Every sound, every scent, every heartbeat was louder than usual. Inside the car, I sat still for a long time. The bottle was sitting on the passenger seat, innocent and gleaming, wrapped in gold tissue paper, a gift that suddenly felt like an insult. He'd bought her the same perfume I wore. How poetic. How pathetic. I rested my forehead against the steering wheel, breathing in the faint trace of the scent that lingered on my wrist. Once, it meant intimacy. Now, it smelled like deceit. And still, some twisted part of me smiled at the irony. He'd made us indistinguishable, his wife and his mistress sharing the same fragrance. I started the engine and drove home, my hands steady, my mind not. Every turn of the wheel came with questions I wasn't ready to answer. How long? Who was she? Did she know about me? Or worse, did she not care? The radio hummed softly, but I barely heard it. My mind replayed the saleswoman's voice over and over, like a cruel echo that wouldn't fade. Somewhere between the shop and my driveway, I made a silent promise to myself. I wasn't going to explode. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to learn everything. Quietly. Precisely. When I arrived home, the house greeted me with its usual calm. Candles half burned, Daniel's jacket on the chair, the faint scent of cedar and aftershave hanging in the air. Everything looked the same, but it all felt staged, like a set built for a play I no longer believed in. I placed the shopping bag on the counter and stared at it. That simple bottle now held too much meaning. Proof of something I hadn't yet seen, but already knew. I should have thrown it away, smashed it maybe, but I didn't. I needed it close. A reminder. I poured myself a glass of wine, watching the reflection of the liquid shimmer in the light. My pulse was calm again, almost unnervingly so. Rage had turned into clarity. that cold, quiet kind of focus that doesn't scream, it plans. I thought of Daniel's face, his easy charm, his practiced sincerity. He always said I was the most perceptive woman he knew. I wondered if he'd still say that after this. I took a sip, feeling the burn spread slowly, deliberately, like a secret I was learning to savor. That night, I placed the perfume bottle on my dresser beside our wedding photo, his arm around me, both of us smiling, naive. I studied the two of us for a moment before turning the frame face down. The bottle stayed upright, its golden glow catching the light. There was something poetic about it, betrayal wrapped in elegance. I went to bed with that scent still clinging to my skin, a quiet vow forming between heartbeats. Tomorrow I'd start peeling back the layers, and I wouldn't stop until I found the truth hiding underneath. The next morning, sunlight poured through the curtains like nothing had happened, bright, intrusive, almost mocking. I sat at my vanity, staring at the perfume bottle as if it were capable of confessing. My reflection looked composed, maybe even serene, but my mind was loud. I uncapped the bottle and sprayed it once into the air. The scent bloomed instantly. Sweet, floral, familiar. But it no longer belonged to me. It was tainted. It reeked of her, whoever she was, of him, of everything I now doubted. I thought about how fragile trust really is, how it can shatter without a sound. I'd built my marriage on routines, morning coffee, quick kisses, predictable laughter. I never realized how easily a stranger's name could slip into the silence between them. I pressed my wrist to my nose and inhaled, almost punishing myself with the scent. It used to remind me of tenderness. Now it stung like smoke in my lungs. I whispered under my breath, "You bought her this. The same one. The same smell that lingers on your sheets." That evening, when Daniel walked through the door, I was ready. He looked radiant, the kind of easy charm that used to melt me. "You look beautiful," he said, kissing my cheek. "What's that smell? New perfume?" I smiled faintly. "You tell me. Do you recognize it?" He paused for half a beat, barely noticeable, but I caught it. No, not really." My smile widened. "That's odd. I heard it's quite unforgettable." He laughed, awkward and thin, and I laughed with him, a duet of lies playing perfectly in tune. Dinner that night felt like a performance I'd already rehearsed 1,000 times. He talked about work, his clients, some tedious meeting he barely remembered. I nodded at the right moments, smiled when expected, even reached across the table once to touch his hand, just to see if he'd flinch. He didn't. That almost made it worse. His lies were comfortable now, woven neatly into the fabric of our evenings. Every fork scraping against the plate, every sip of wine, sounded like proof I didn't need but couldn't ignore. When he leaned in to kiss me goodnight, I caught a faint trace of something that wasn't mine. A perfume similar to the one on my dresser, but cheaper, weaker, like a counterfeit version of the truth. My heart thudded so hard I thought he might hear it. Instead, he whispered, "Good night, Soph," and fell asleep within minutes, the peace of a man who believed he'd gotten away with it. I lay beside him, my eyes tracing the ceiling, wondering when love had become a stage where I was the only one who knew the script had changed. Eventually, I reached for his phone on the nightstand. My hands didn't tremble, not even a little. His face glowed on the screen for a moment, then gave way to a list of messages, neatly organized, like his whole life. And there it was. "Can't wait to see you again. I'm wearing your favorite perfume, the one you picked." My chest tightened, but not from heartbreak. No, it was something colder, something cleaner. The kind of calm that comes when you realize the truth is finally yours to hold and to use. I stared at that message for what felt like hours. The words didn't just sit on the screen. They carved themselves into me line by line. Your favorite perfume. The same scent I wore every day, the one that lingered on his shirts, his car, his skin. He had given it to her, too. It wasn't about the bottle anymore. It was about identity. He had duplicated me, turned my love into something mass-produced. And for the first time, I understood that betrayal isn't loud. It's quiet, methodical, almost graceful in its cruelty. I locked his phone and placed it gently back on the nightstand. He shifted slightly, murmuring something in his sleep, and I watched him, not with love, not even with hatred, but with analysis. Every breath he took was a reminder that he believed I was still his fool. I wanted to scream, to shake him awake and demand the truth, but I didn't. I just whispered to myself, "Not yet." The words tasted like power. I turned off the light and lay back, staring into the dark. The scent of the perfume still hung faintly in the air. His favorite. Her favorite. Mine no longer. The ache inside me wasn't weakness. It was ignition. I realized that to truly break a man like Daniel, you don't destroy him in anger. You dismantle him in silence. And as sleep crept in, I knew exactly where I'd start. The next morning, I moved through the house as if nothing had changed. I made coffee, folded laundry, watered the plants, all the simple rituals that used to mean home. But now they were camouflage. Behind every quiet gesture, there was intention. I wasn't his wife anymore. I was his shadow, his mirror, his silent observer. Every sound of his footsteps, every ring of his phone felt like a clue waiting to be collected. When he kissed my cheek before leaving for work, I smiled back, memorizing the exact scent of guilt on his skin. Once he was gone, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and began what I silently called the audit. Receipts, call logs, bank statements. I traced his movements like a detective who already knew the ending. He was careful, I'll give him that, but not careful enough. A hidden reservation here, an unfamiliar restaurant charge there. Love might blind you for a while, but betrayal has perfect vision. I printed everything, each page a tiny betrayal turned into evidence. By noon, my sister Clara was sitting across from me, her face pale with fury. She'd always been the protective one, the kind who believed anger was a form of loyalty. "You can't let him get away with this," she said, her voice trembling. "You have to destroy him." I took a slow sip of my coffee before answering. "I will," I said, "but not with rage, with precision." She looked at me, surprised by my calm, not realizing that calmness is just what vengeance looks like before it moves. I found the booking tucked between mundane charges, a hotel reservation with a lakeside view, 2 nights, a name I didn't recognize at first. My heart did something weird then. Not the sudden lurch of panic, but a slow, satisfying click, like a key finding its lock. I printed the confirmation and circled the dates with a pen, as if marking territory. For the first time since the saleswoman's offhand comment, I felt a plan take shape. Clear, cold, inevitable. This weekend would not be his secret playground. I called the hotel under the pretense of curiosity and listened carefully while the clerk confirmed a reservation under Daniel Reeves. The voice at the other end was casual, helpful. It said things like, "Enjoy your stay," without knowing the weight of what it meant to me. I asked questions, innocuous, precise, about arrivals, room service, whether any champagne had been requested. Every small answer stitched together the map I needed. He'd planned this carefully. So would I. That afternoon, I went shopping for things he'd never expect me to bring. A pair of understated earrings that matched the ones I wore the night we met, a light scarf that would flutter just right, and a soft perfume, the same one in the bag I'd bought worn like armor. Clara hugged me when I told her. "Are you sure?" she whispered, eyes fierce. "I'm sure," I told her, and the certainty felt clean. I would let the weekend happen, and I would be there too. The rest of the week passed like the calm before a storm. Daniel was his usual self, attentive, affectionate, perfectly rehearsed. He talked about deadlines and late meetings, about how he couldn't wait for our anniversary dinner next week. I nodded, smiled, even kissed him goodnight, but every touch now felt like data, evidence of how easily a lie can sound like love. At night, I'd lie awake, mapping his words against his itinerary, rehearsing the confrontation I hadn't yet decided to stage. The silence between us had shape now. It was almost alive. By Thursday, I had packed a small suitcase of my own, neutral clothes, a silk blouse, a book I had no intention of reading. Everything chosen to look ordinary, forgettable. I booked my room under a different name, my voice calm as I confirmed the reservation next to his. The clerk didn't ask questions, and I didn't offer answers. The power of anonymity was intoxicating. He thought I was home, folding laundry, trusting him. The irony was exquisite. That night, as he slept, I stood at the window watching the city lights flicker across our room. My reflection stared back at me, steady, unreadable. This wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was strategy. I wasn't going to confront him with tears and accusations. I was going to let him hang himself with the rope he'd been weaving so patiently. I whispered to the dark, "You wanted a performance, Daniel. Let's give them a show." Friday morning arrived wrapped in pretense. Daniel kissed me goodbye at the door, suitcase in hand, smiling the way only a liar can, soft, confident, rehearsed. "Don't wait up for me," he said. "These meetings go late." I traced my finger along his tie, pretending to fix it, my eyes meeting his for just a moment too long. "Of course," I said sweetly. "Work hard." He smiled, kissed my cheek, and walked away. The door closed, and with it, so did the last illusion of innocence. I waited exactly 30 minutes before picking up my own bag and leaving too. The drive to the lakeside hotel was quiet except for the hum of the tires against the road. My hands rested calmly on the steering wheel, but my pulse beat fast enough to count the miles. I wasn't nervous. Nerves were for women who still cared. What I felt was focus, sharpened by betrayal and steadied by intention. The trees grew denser as I neared the water, the air cooling, the sky turning a soft, deceptive blue. Somewhere up ahead, my husband was checking into a room meant for lies. At the front desk, I gave a name that wasn't mine and a smile that wasn't warm. The clerk handed me a keycard without suspicion. My room was right next to his, exactly as I'd planned. Inside, I stood for a moment in silence, listening. Through the thin wall, laughter spilled like perfume, sweet, cheap, and suffocating. Hers. His. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I simply sat on the edge of the bed, lifted the perfume bottle from my purse, and sprayed it once into the air. The scent bloomed around me like a promise. Tonight, he'd learn what memory really smelled like. The hours crawled by, every tick of the clock syncing with their laughter through the wall. I poured myself a glass of wine from the minibar and watched the reflection of the room flicker in the window. It felt surreal, being this close, hearing him say her name, the same tone he once used for mine. I imagined the scene next door, the smiles, the whispers, the false intimacy. He thought he'd rewritten the story of his life. What he didn't realize was that I had already started editing the ending. At 7, I called the front desk, my voice calm and kind. "Hi," I said. "I think there's been a small mix-up. I believe the champagne delivery for Mr. Daniel Reeves was sent to the wrong room. Could you bring it to mine?" The young man on the phone apologized, flustered, promising to correct it right away. I thanked him sweetly and hung up, my heart steady as a clock. I walked to the mirror, checked my reflection, hair pinned softly, perfume lingering, earrings glinting in the light. I looked like control itself. A few minutes later, I heard footsteps in the hallway and the faint clink of glass. Then, as the knock came to my door, another door opened. His. I waited, timing it perfectly, and stepped out into the corridor just as he looked up. For a split second, our eyes met. His smile froze mid-word. I saw recognition, panic, and guilt all collide in his expression. Behind him, she appeared, her laughter fading into confusion. The air between us turned electric, thick with the scent of the perfume we both wore. "Oh, Daniel," I said softly, tilting my head just enough to make the moment sting. "I didn't realize this was your business meeting." My tone was polite, almost amused, the kind of composure that frightens men more than fury ever could. His face drained of color as he stumbled for words. "Sophia, what are you doing here?" Before he could recover, the woman behind him appeared, young, pretty, and wearing the same perfume. The same perfume. "Who's she?" she asked, voice trembling. I smiled kindly. "His wife, and apparently your perfume twin." The silence that followed could have broken glass. Daniel's lips parted, desperate for a lie to crawl out, but nothing came. "Sophia, please," he stammered. "I can explain." "Don't," I cut him off, my voice low but steady. "You've already said enough. You gave me every piece of proof I needed." I reached into my purse and pulled out a small envelope. Inside it, a card with my lawyer's name embossed in gold. I placed it on the small table beside the champagne tray. "I came to deliver your anniversary gift," I said. "Consider it the last thing you'll ever get from me." He stood there frozen, his mistress looking between us like she'd stumbled into the wrong movie. I stepped closer, close enough that the perfume from both of us mingled, indistinguishable. "You gave her my scent, Daniel," I whispered, leaning just enough for only him to hear. "Now she gets your shame too." His jaw tightened, eyes glistening, but I didn't wait for his answer. I turned, lifted my chin, and walked away, heels clicking down the corridor like punctuation marks on the story I'd just ended. Back in the city, everything felt quieter, cleaner somehow. The noise of betrayal had finally faded, replaced by the steady rhythm of consequence. I filed for divorce the following Monday, my lawyer handling the details while I sat in her office, composed and unshaken. Daniel tried calling, of course. The voicemails started soft, remorseful, desperate, and grew more frantic with each passing day. "Sophia, please," he said once, his voice breaking. "It was a mistake." I listened to that one twice, not because I cared, but because I wanted to remember how small he sounded when the lies stopped working. When we finally met to sign the papers, he looked like a man unraveling. His eyes searched my face for any trace of the woman who used to forgive him, but she was gone. "Sophia," he whispered, "please, don't do this." I smiled faintly, sliding the pen toward him. "Daniel," I said, my tone calm, almost kind. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. What you did was a choice." He lowered his gaze, his hand trembling as he signed the page that severed us. It was strange, how finality could feel both heavy and freeing at once. He lost nearly everything in the settlement. The house, the car, the image he'd built so carefully. I didn't even feel the satisfaction I thought I might. What I felt instead was peace, the kind that comes when you stop chasing explanations. I kept only a few things from our life together: a photo, a painting we bought in Paris, and the perfume bottle. It sat on a shelf in my office, perfectly still, a silent witness to what I'd endured. Not a reminder of him, but of me, and how beautifully I'd refused to break. People kept asking me how I was doing, their voices cautious, as if heartbreak were contagious. I'd smile and tell them the truth. I was fine. Not because it didn't hurt, but because the pain had burned itself clean. There's something strangely liberating about losing everything that was built on lies. You start to see yourself without the fog of someone else's narrative. I began waking up earlier, cooking breakfast just for me, sitting by the window with my coffee, and realizing I didn't need to rush to be anyone's wife anymore. My mornings were mine again. Occasionally, I'd pass by the boutique, the one where it all began. The same soft jazz played, the same scent drifted out the door, but now it made me smile. I didn't hate the perfume anymore. I'd reclaimed it. It wasn't his favorite scent now. It was just a scent. A beautiful one that belonged to no one but me. I'd watch couples browsing inside, and for a moment, I'd feel a mix of pity and nostalgia. I used to be them, believing that love meant safety. Now I knew love should mean freedom. Daniel tried once more, months later. He stood outside my office looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. "You won," he said quietly. I looked at him for a long moment before answering. "No, Daniel. I just stopped losing." There was no anger left, no need for revenge, only clarity. As he turned to leave, I caught a faint trace of that old scent lingering on his coat, and it didn't hurt this time. It just confirmed what I already knew. He'd never grow beyond the lie. But I had. After the papers were finalized, I started rebuilding, not my marriage, but myself. I took long walks in the park, rediscovered my love for design, and accepted a position at a small boutique downtown. At first it felt strange to be surrounded by fragrances again, but over time, the scent stopped triggering memories and started sparking ideas. Each bottle told a story, some bold, some tender, some hauntingly bittersweet. And somewhere between the top notes and the base, I found mine again. The scent of resilience, the quiet, elegant kind that lingers after chaos fades. I stopped wearing my wedding ring one morning without ceremony. I simply looked at it resting on the counter, its surface dulled from years of routine, and left it there. Freedom didn't feel like a roar. It was a whisper. It was the stillness of realizing I could finally breathe without waiting for someone to join me. I didn't need revenge anymore. I had resolution. There's a power in walking away with grace, in letting someone drown in the silence you leave behind. One evening, as I locked up the shop, I caught my reflection in the window. I looked different, not younger, not harder, just real. The woman staring back at me had survived something quiet and brutal, and somehow turned it into art. I smiled then, softly, as the perfume on my wrist caught the night air. It wasn't his scent anymore. It was mine. A reminder that even after betrayal, some things can still be beautiful, especially when they're reborn from the ashes of what tried to break you. Months later, the boutique was finally mine. Not Daniel's, not anyone else's. Mine. I'd taken over the small space on the corner of Maple Street, filled it with light and glass and the soft hum of jazz that once played in the store where everything fell apart. Funny how life circles back, only this time, I was the one behind the counter. Each morning, I'd unlock the door, breathe in the blend of sandalwood, jasmine, and something new, something I'd created myself. A scent that didn't exist before I decided I deserved to start over. Customers came and went, each carrying a story behind their request. Some wanted to smell like confidence, others like love or nostalgia. I listened, crafted, mixed, and blended, pouring their emotions into glass bottles with quiet care. One afternoon, a young woman walked in, eyes red, smile fragile. "I'm looking for something that feels like starting over," she said. I nodded, instantly understanding. I guided her to the counter, unrolling my sleeves, revealing wrists stained faintly with oils and new beginnings. As I reached for the bottles, I said, "Let's create something unique, one that no one else could ever wear." She smiled, a little hope flickering through her tears. I began mixing, drop by drop, watching the colors swirl like memories dissolving into possibility. The air filled with something bright, bold, and clean. There, I said softly. That's what freedom smells like. As the fragrance settled in the air, the young woman closed her eyes and breathed deeply. It's beautiful, she whispered, her voice trembling with that mix of sadness and hope I knew all too well. It doesn't smell like anything I've worn before. I smiled. Good, I said. It shouldn't. Starting over means leaving behind every scent that tried to define you. She nodded, and for a moment, I saw myself standing where she was months ago, hurt, lost, and trying to find something that didn't remind me of him. But the difference now was that I had already found it. When she left, I stayed at the counter, letting the quiet fill the room. The sun dipped through the windows, casting golden light on rows of bottles, each labeled with words like grace, courage, rebirth. My hand brushed over one small, unlabeled bottle sitting alone, the same design Daniel once bought. I'd kept it all this time, not as a wound, but as proof of evolution. It wasn't a token of betrayal anymore. It was the seed of everything I'd built. I'd turned pain into perfume, and somehow it smelled like peace. I placed that old bottle high on a shelf, above the rest, where it caught the last light of the setting sun. It gleamed softly, no longer a symbol of him, but a quiet testament to me. Life has a way of rewriting itself when you stop chasing what broke you. I'd thought he'd taken something from me that day in the boutique, but he hadn't. He'd only cleared space for who I was always meant to become. That evening, after closing the shop, I walked outside and locked the door behind me. The city was quiet, painted in shades of amber and dusk. I paused, inhaling the crisp air, no longer the scent of betrayal, but of renewal. The faint trace of the new fragrance clung to my wrist, fresh and unapologetic. I smiled to myself. For so long, my life had revolved around being someone's wife, someone's muse, someone's memory. Now, I was simply me. And that, I realized, was the most intoxicating perfume of all. As I strolled down the street, my thoughts drifted to that first day. The boutique, the saleswoman, the moment everything cracked open. I'd thought that discovery had ruined me. But standing here now, in my own skin, I knew it had done the opposite. It had set me free. Pain has a strange way of teaching you who you are. It strips you down to your essence, then dares you to rebuild. I had rebuilt myself from scent and silence, from patience and pride. And I'd done it without losing grace. When I reached the corner, I looked back through the shop window one last time. The light inside shimmered against the glass bottles, each one a story of survival. My reflection smiled faintly as I whispered, "He gave me the same perfume he gave her, so I created one that belongs to no one else, just me." The city swallowed my words, but the truth lingered, fragrant and fearless in the night air.